All right, let's dive into a world that bugs most of us mosquitoes. You sent in some interesting sources, and honestly, they're way more complex than I realized.
Yeah, we usually just think, ugh, pests. But their history, their biology, even how they fit into the ecosystem, it's wild.
Like, I had no idea they were around with dinosaurs. That's some serious staying power.
It shows how adaptable they are, you know? They survived stuff we couldn't even imagine, like that asteroid. So now trying to control them, we're up against millions of years of evolution, basically.
Wow, battling them in the backyard is like a tiny time war. So, what kind of adaptations are we up against specifically?
Well, look at how they eat, for one.
Hmm.
Only the females bite, right? And only when they need protein for eggs. That's not random bloodlust, that's targeted resource use, which is kind of smart.
Makes sense, so they're not always out to get us. But the way they bite, it's sneaky, like they're ninjas or something.
Totally. Finding us in the dark, using carbon dioxide, heat, even our looks, that's sophisticated. And their saliva, it's not just thinning blood, it's got stuff to numb us and stop clots.
So that's why we don't feel it right away. They brought their own anesthetic.
Right. And then the itch hits.
Ugh, don't get me started. It's impossible not to scratch.
Even that's interesting. It's not the bite itself, it's our immune system freaking out. An allergic reaction to those proteins in the saliva, some people have it bad.
So it's us reacting that makes it also annoying. A human mosquito battle, basically. Speaking of battling, we humans have tried everything.
Yeah.
Swatting, sprays, even weird folk remedies. Our sources had some creative examples.
Oh, yeah, anything to avoid those bites. And it's not just the itch, it's the health risks, too. They carry some nasty diseases.
True, things get serious there, malaria, dengue fever, all that. Sources mentioned some folks were confused about how those actually spread, though.
Yeah, it's key to understand. The mosquito has to bite an infected person first. Then that same mosquito has to bite you. It's not just floating in the air.
So not like catching a cold. There's a specific chain of events. This means mosquito control isn't just about bumps, it's potentially stopping disease, too.
Absolutely. That's where knowing their biology is so important. It helps us make good control strategies, insecticides, changing habitats, even GMO mosquitoes.
Whoa, so we're using their evolution against them almost.
Kinda, but we got to be careful too. Think about the environment. Eradication isn't always the answer. They do have a place in the ecosystem, even if we don't love it.
Right, before we get too ahead, let's back up. We mentioned repellents, but sources had old school stuff too, like citronella candles. I'm curious how our anti-mosquito tactics have changed over
Oh,
time.
that's a cool. For ages, people use smoke, plant oils, even mud to keep them away. Citronella's kind of recent early 1900s thing with that strong smell.
So people have always wanted to enjoy summer nights bite-free.
Oh, yeah. Then came the big shift. Synthetic repellents like DEET in the mid-1900s. Way more effective, lasted longer than natural stuff.
But with new stuff comes the question, is it safe? What about the environment?
Exactly. Gotta understand the science behind it all and use it responsibly.
And this is where things get interesting, because it's not just spraying chemicals everywhere. There's different types of repellents, different ways to use them, even ethical stuff to think about. Feels like we've just like dipped our toes in, and it's already deep stuff. It's crazy how a mosquito bite can lead to like all these big questions.
Right. That's what's cool about these dives. We start with annoying bites and end up talking history, science, even ethics, how we deal with nature and all.
Speaking of ethics, one source asked, should we even try to wipe out mosquitoes entirely? I mean, they've been around forever, they're part of things. Do we have the right?
That's a tough one. On one hand, they cause so much suffering, the diseases, they kill hundreds of thousands yearly, wreck economies, health systems. So wanting them gone is understandable.
But like you said, they're part of the ecosystem, so what happens if we do wipe them out?
Big unknown. They're food for birds, bats, other bugs. They even pollinate some plants, so taking them away could mess stuff up. Unintended consequences.
Classic dilemma, human health versus messing with nature's balance. Any solutions that like work on both sides of that?
That's what researchers are on now, less about total eradication, more about controlling them in a targeted way, something sustainable, you know?
You give an example. What would that even look like?
Well, genetic modification is promising. Scientists are making mosquitoes resistant to diseases. Like, imagine a malaria-proof mosquito. They mate with the wild ones and boom, less disease.
Sounds like sci-fi, but in a good way. Hopeful even.
It is, but gotta be cautious too. Ethics of messing with genes. Will it really work long term? Unforeseen stuff. Always gotta think about that.
Right. Never simple, is it?
Yeah.
But at least they're aiming for helping humans and the environment.
Yeah, and there's other tactics too. Traps, new repellents that are safer for us and nature, even just teaching people how to reduce mosquito breeding spots around their homes, simple stuff.
That all sounds way better than just nuking them from orbit, haha.
Mm.
Like, we learn to live with them, but in a way that, minimizes the harm.
That goes back to putting up with them, but not just enduring bites. It's about getting them, respecting their place, finding a way to coexist.
Hey, serious stuff aside, gotta ask about those folk remedies. Covering yourself in beer to keep them away? Seriously, does that work?
I'd advise against it. No science backs that up, sorry.
Figured as much, but it's funny where people get these ideas.
We want easy answers to tough problems, right? So some folklore gets mixed with real observations.
So how do we tell what's legit? Sources had tons of repellent options, natural, chemical, the whole gamut.
Evidence is key. Look to groups like the CDC, World Health Organization. They give the real deal.
So before my next camping trip, I'll hit up the CDC website, not the garlic clove. Haha.
Exactly. They'll tell you what works best for each situation and how to use it safely.
It's funny, we started complaining about mosquitoes, and now we're, having deep thoughts. They're tiny, but man, they bring up some big topics.
Power of curiosity, right? It takes us to weird places, makes us understand the world better.
Love that. Stay curious. Good advice for, life in general, not just big stuff.
Totally. And specifically for mosquitoes, being informed is key. Know the risks, protect yourself right, support research that's trying to find those good solutions.
This has been eye-opening, truly. I've gone from hating mosquito season to kind of being into them. Who knew they were this complex and interesting?
It's like we've, I don't know, leveled up how we think about them.
Yeah, not just, ooh, mosquitoes, but, there's more to it.
More to it, yeah. From annoyed to, actually understanding them, even respecting them a bit.
Respect for mosquitoes. Didn't think I'd say that. But one source called them a source of wonder, which at first I was like, huh. But thinking about how long they've been around, how they fit into everything, it kind of makes sense.
Right. Even tiny things can teach us big stuff, how adaptable they are, how they survive, how they thrive in, any environment that's impressive.
So maybe that's the lesson. Not just enemies, but a fascinating part of nature,
And a reminder that we matter too. What we do affects things. Repellents, controlling them, even just how we think about them, it's all connected.
So what's our listeners supposed to do with all this? Besides buying the right bug spray,
First off, stay curious. Keep learning. Keep asking questions. There's always more to find out.
Love that. Stay curious. Works for everything, not just mosquitoes.
Totally. And specifically for them, be informed, know the risks, protect yourself the right way, support the science, the people trying to find solutions that work for everyone.
This deep dive has been, honestly, mind-blowing. I'm kind of fascinated by mosquitoes now. Who knew there was so much to them?
It's all about taking that closer look, right? We ignore the familiar, the small stuff, but when you really dive in, there's a whole world there. It's pretty amazing.
Well said. So, listeners, one last thought. Next time you hear that buzz, don't just swat. Think about where that mosquito's been, what it does, what it can teach us, about resilience, adapting, how we're all connected to living things, even the annoying ones.
Even the annoying ones, yep.
Yeah.
They've got a story, too.
Until next time, everyone stay curious, stay informed, and hey, maybe even find a little beauty in those pesky mosquitoes.